Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Danny Dignan, also known as Imaginate, and I'm here today with Black Octopus Sound to take a look at the newest Sugar Bytes plugin, Effectrix 2. Effectrix 2 is a multi-effect sequencer that allows us to add a variety of different effects, which we'll go over in this video, to a full mix or individual sounds over a sequence of beats or bars. This is a really cool plugin and I'm excited to talk about it. So many cool effects that are great for sequences of effects or just individual instances of effects as well. A lot of usability in this plugin. If you like the sounds coming out of Effectrix 2 in this video, you can grab a copy of the plugin over at blackoctopussound.com. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate the versatility of Effectrix 2 by applying it to individual sounds in a full mix here that I have loaded up in Logic Pro. The sounds I'll be using in this demonstration are from my two sample packs, Metallum Heavy Industrial Breaks and Foley Chill Step, both of which are available on blackoctopussound.com. Okay, so to start things off, I'm going to show you a few different sound demos of Effectrix just set up with a couple of presets, just to show you immediately what kinds of cool things you can get out of this plugin. Okay, so here we are in Logic, and these are a couple of the loops that we're going to be using in this video. Cool, so two different styles, one heavier and one more melodic. This is going to be great to show off the different capabilities of Effectrix 2. Let's apply Effectrix and take a listen to the cool ways that you can remix and spice up some of these sounds or the full mix. Cool, so yeah, just tons of different things you can do with this plugin. As you can see here, there's so many different effects that we have to choose from, but lots of cool things in here, and I want to show you some of those cool things as well as the main basic functions. So when we load up a default instance of Effectrix 2, this is what we get. We have the sequencer grid right here. We have the bar length, so we have 1 to 8 bars, and we can extend that to 16, 24, and 32. Cool little feature. If we want to choose just the effects of the first 8 bars, we can use the slider right here to choose 1 to 8, and then we can maybe choose the effects of bars 9 to 16 and so on and so forth. So a cool way to as well stay organized with what kinds of effects we want to happen over a duration of bars. We can also change the notational value. So if we want quarter notes, we can choose quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, all the way up to eighth triplets. We can also set the BPM of the sequence by going here. We can click host or we can tap in our own. Of course, since this is a sequencer plugin, I think that's the most important place to start. We can now take a look at all of the effects. So we have 14 different effects here. We have looper A, looper B, grain, ring, vinyl, spectrum, tonalizer, crush, filter, phaser, modulation, delay, reverb, and level. So a really cool variety of things going on here. We have some really sound design centric kinds of effects, as well as some conventional effects, such as the loopers, the delay, and reverbs. But don't get me wrong, you can definitely do some really cool sound design stuff there. Now, every effect comes with its own set of parameters, which we can find below the grid. Every effect also comes with a dry wet knob, and some of the effects just have a wet. So on the delay and reverb, we have just a wet, so 100% wet, 0%, very straightforward. Whereas some of these, the dry and wet, are kind of like a parallel processing effect. Each effect also comes with its own set of stock presets. This is really great for learning a little bit more about what's going on in that certain effect, or if you just want to have instant creative possibility. You can also save your own presets by going to this disk right here. And then one of my favorite features in the plugin is this die right here. Is, you guessed it, a randomization button. And speaking of presets, up here next to the Effectrix 2 logo, we have the default preset loaded up, but if we click on default, we now have a bunch of different folders featuring a bunch of different effects. Now, one last cool thing to know about this plugin is over here on the right-hand border, we have a chain link. This chain link, when we click on it, turns it off. And what this allows us to do is to apply different kinds of effect across these different bars that we've put in here. If we hit this chain link here and we have it turned on, every box highlights. This means if we affect one, they all get affected globally. Now, if we turn off the chain link, we now can do different kinds of parameter setups across the different boxes that we've put in. This is important to know because if we have a slower notational value, maybe over a longer period of time, if we have the same effect happening over half notes of 16 bars, that might get a little dull, right? So this opens up possibility for us to every half note have different kinds of parameter makeups for each box, just furthering our creative possibility. Okay, so that's the basic rundown of the plugin. Lots of cool things going on. Let's now take a closer look at each effect. So now if we want to add a bar or box of an effect, all we have to do is simply click on a box just like that, and now we have one quarter note of that effect. Now, if we want this effect to last over a longer period of time, then we just go ahead and click on it and drag it out like that, and we'll have it affect this loop for 8 bars. And this is what looper A sounds like. So this is one of those effects in this plugin that's great for conventional looping use. If you want to put like a fill, or if you just want to have a repeating section, maybe even a buildup, you can get some choppy effects, some glitchy choppy effects, or even create some synth sounds and basses. Just really cool stuff. Looper B works like a vinyl stop and start looping effect, so it's going to have a different sonic profile than Looper A. I find that this is a great effect for basses, especially like if you're doing bass sound design. This is a great way to get some variation in your bass sound and get variations in rhythm, variation in tone, all kinds of cool things, and you can build out your sample library that way very easily. So that's Looper B. Now let's take a look at grain. This is just a really great sound design tool for granular textures. And this is a really cool way to also get foundations for sounds. Like if you want to get foundations for atmospheres or glitchy sound, of course, this is a great way to get that very easily. For example, if I go ahead and mute the bass here and turn on the melodics that we have down here, play this loop, maybe mute the drums. This is a really great way to get some of those strange synthetic sounds that you hear in a lot of experimental music, techno, and even cinematic stuff. Now let's take a listen to the ring modulator. Kind of a goofy sound, but of course, if we play with these parameters down here, we can get some really interesting effects. So the ring modulator one is definitely a weird one. I find this is really great for adding those kind of telephony effects, or if you want to add maybe like some FM texture to a bass or your drums, just to add a little bit of that kind of like singy sound. This is a great effect for that. Okay, let's take a look at vinyl now. Cool. So yeah, it's a pretty simple effect when you just use it right out of the gate, but when you start applying like these different sequence setups here that I have set up and other effects with it, like the looper here, you can get some really cool remixed ideas very easily. So like here's without the plugin. This is a great way to just introduce a little bit of variation in the entire mix. So that's the vinyl effect. Let's take a look at Spectrum. I'm gonna mute the bass here and just have the drums playing just to really show you some of the cool things you can do with it on something that is a little bit more atonal or usually considered atonal. So yeah, as you heard, lots of different cool sound design possibilities. And here at the end, just a great way to maybe add a little bit of tonal punch to the drums very subtly. Just a cool thing to do on drums in particular. Lots of cool things you can do. Let's take a look at Tonalizer. So pretty straightforward here, right? Just a tonalizer, kind of makes a chord out of whatever's being run through the plugin. Okay, so as you can hear, it has a similar sort of sound as Spectrum, and that's because it uses very specific targeted frequencies to create a selection of chords or selection of notes. As you can see down here, we have a parameter called note, and this is just whatever note we'd like. So we can go, of course, from C0 all the way up to C5 and all the notes in between. We can also set the spread of notes. So if we want to have a chord that is a major chord, we can select that. We can go minor, major 7, minor 7, chromatic, all the way up to unisono. We can do octaves and fourths too if you don't want to have a whole lot of maybe emotional characteristic or very specific chordal characteristics. Maybe let's choose fourths for now because that's kind of interesting. Here we have feedback, and this of course is just going to exaggerate those targeted notes or targeted frequencies. Let's go ahead and turn off the drums here and maybe just play that pad sound and just get some different kinds of textural qualities on it using this. So this is the sound without the effect. Now with it, so a really great way to change the melodic or harmonic quality of a harmonic sound, or a melodic sound, of course. I find that this is an incredibly useful effect for these kinds of instances with melodic and harmonic sounds. Okay, let's check out the crush effect here. And just do some kind of random rhythm right here. So of course, this is a great way to get textural interest and difference over this right here, this rhythm of 16 bars, and a cool way to get kind of bit crush, glitchy rhythmic textures. Definitely one of the really fun aspects of this plugin. Okay, so that wraps up the more unusual effects in Effectrix. Let's take a look at filter, phaser, modulation, delay, reverb, and level to close things out. So let's draw in an instance of filter effect. Pretty straightforward effect. We can change the filter type down here where it says high pass. I'm pretty partial to a Moog filter, so let's go ahead and select that. Let's Let's go ahead and plug in like a cool, interesting rhythm here. Cool, so yeah, very straightforward effect, but this is a really easy way to get those interesting filter rhythms that you might hear in a lot of like breakbeats music, house, techno. It's such a cool effect, and this is a great plugin to do that really easily with the different steps that we can set here for each individual box. Okay, let's take a look at the phaser. And this might be really cool on the bass sound that we have up top. So again, lots of cool things you can do with the phaser here. You can get that traditional phaser effect. This is, of course, really great on maybe E-pianos and most melodic instruments really, but really effective, I think, on basses, especially if you're going for that Reese neuro kind of sound. And of course, if you turn up the LFO speed here and the LFO amount, you can get some interesting timbral changes in your sound. Modulation's a bit of an interesting effect. This is basically a chorus flanger. Let's play this on the melodic sounds. Cool. So again, as you heard there, great to add metallic kind of qualities to maybe your drums, things that are a little bit more percussive and atonal. Whereas on the melodics here, you can get some interesting extra texture and tone, but you can also get maybe that analog pitch drifty sound as well too. Okay, let's take a look at delay. This effect in Effectrix 2 is really interesting because you'd expect a delay to be just kind of traditional and conventional, right? Well, in this instance, it is, but it also does a lot of interesting and weird time and space effects. So I really like the delay, of course, especially on maybe percussive sounds where I want to get a little bit more things happening across the stereo spectrum. Let's take a look at reverb here. So the reverb effect is, of course, a reverb, but what I find really cool about it in this kind of setting, in this sequencer setting, is instead of it being a static reverb that you would apply to your drums or maybe some synths or other instruments, you can actually apply a reverb with a little bit more intention. So effectively, as you've seen and heard here, I apply this effect to the kick and the snare, the 1 and the 5 of this sequence, just to get a little bit more room texture, but also the room sounds a little bit metallic. So it kind of is like we're getting more of the cymbals and tops in the entire drums. And the great part about that is we're not getting a bunch of mud throughout the duration of the full loop because we only have it coming in and out on the 1 and the 5, the kick and the snare. It goes further than just a static conventional reverb. There is actual purpose and intention for the reverb across certain points on the sequence of a loop, but I find especially with drums, this is incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. Okay, lastly, let's take a look at the level here. Is exactly what you'd expect it to do. Really nothing crazy going on here other than if you wanted to set up a sequence here. Okay, so although a very simple effect, it's great for a couple of different things. This is a great way to get that stuttery, glitchy effect, of course, because you can just adjust the level of each individual box of a sequence if that's what you've done. You can also change the panning for some interesting stereo dimension interest. You can change the gain, We can also add some limiting, which is great. If you want to have all of these effects going and they're maybe blowing out the signal, we can apply a limiter across the board, straight up bar like this, and then we can have that entire sequence of 8 bars. Limited, we can apply some stereo dimension effect here. So if we want to maybe have a sequence of this loop here, mono for a couple of things, and then gets really big and stereoized for a couple of other ones, and get that interesting dramatic stereo effect that occurs when you do that kind of stuff. This is of course a great way to do it. Pretty simple effect, but lots of cool things you can do with it if you get creative. And of course, if you use the randomization button here, you can get some interesting things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. Who knows? A lot of cool possibilities. But that about wraps up this plugin. Such a cool plugin, so many things that you can do with it. You can get some really crazy and interesting, glitchy, rhythmic multi-effect chains, or you can just use it for pretty conventional use as well. Many of the conventional effects here, like the reverbs and delays and all that, sound really good and will sit in most scenarios, both sound design and for maybe mixing or more conventional technical uses. So really great plugin. I like using it especially for just kind of mixing up drums and basses especially too. A benefit from this plugin, getting varieties of different kinds of samples very easily with the different effects inside. So really cool plugin, really excited by this. I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the sounds that came out of it. And of course, if you liked what you heard, you can grab a copy of this plugin, Effectrix 2, over at blackoctopussound.com. That's about it from me. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the material in this video or any other video that you've seen me in, please feel free to reach out to me at my email, which is imimaginate@gmail.com. You can also reach out to me at my website, which is imimaginate.com, or you can reach me on all socials at I Am Imaginate. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.